Howdy, folks. Welcome to the podcast Iron. My name is Laura Mullen Vermilia, and on this podcast, I interview members of the cast iron art community in order to inspire, educate, and spread ideas about iron casting and cast iron art. I am excited to tell you that our guest on today's show is April Terra Livingston. April's artistic practice touches on a wide breadth of themes, and the materials that she utilizes to create her work is inclusive and expansive. During this chat, we discuss some of her recent work as well as her passion for iron casting. April, I am overjoyed that you had time to talk with me about art, life, and iron casting. Hearing about your experiences in the world was extremely inspirational, and your energy and motivation for creating art has caused me to take a contemplative look at my own practice, and I wouldn't be surprised if others felt the same way after listening to our conversation. The podcast Iron Show is sponsored in part by supporters on Patreon. So thank you to everyone who has joined as a Patreon member to help me afford the production costs of this show. And as always, I am exceedingly proud to say that this episode is brought to you by our top supporter, Sloss Metal Arts, which is a national center for iron casting and metal art. For more information about the Sloss Metal Arts program, visit their website, which is slossmetalarts.com, but also follow them on Instagram at Sloss Metal Arts. And personally, I've loved Sloss Metal Arts since my first conference in the spring of 2011. And following them on Instagram helps me feel in touch with them during the 2-year hiatus between each conference. I really love getting the updated scoop on what their main daily operations look like during the off season. So for any reason you happen to be new here or you're not familiar with the iron art casting community in America, Sloss Metal Arts hosts the National Conference on Contemporary Cast Iron Art and Practices every 2 years in Birmingham, Alabama. And the steering committee for the National Conference is in full swing with the planning of this event. They've just closed the open calls for performances, presentations, and other conference-related components. Except exhibitions. Be on the lookout for the exhibition call by following their Instagram handle, which is NCCCIAP, and also periodically check their website, www.nccciap.com. And I'm so excited to see what has been proposed because I know our community has so much information to share, and I cannot wait to soak it up like a sponge. And like I said a moment ago, also keep an eye open for the exhibition calls to apply and have your work shown in the conference exhibitions. So if you have any questions about the national conference, please reach out to me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com, and I can try and get you in touch with the right person or steering committee member. But this conference is for you. It's for us. So show us what you got. And also, I'll talk more about this at the end of the show, but coming up on Saturday, November 19th, Black Dog Metal Arts will run an iron port in Peoria, Illinois. So come on out and have a day full of music, local art, and iron casting. I'll be there, and I'm sure many of your friends will too. Well, now that you've been briefed on everything that's going on, let's get on with the show. So for all of you listening or watching, thanks so much for tuning in, and please enjoy. Well, April Terra Livingston, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
You look fantastic.
Thank you. I wore my clean ruff.
So we have to tell everybody we're recording on Halloween. Wait, is it? It's not Halloween yet.
If we wait a couple of hours.
Yeah, we're recording right before it turns Halloween. And so April dressed very festively, and I missed the memo.
Yes, I dressed festively. This isn't how I dress all the time or anything.
If you're listening to this, you got to at least go to YouTube and check out the video, just at least at the beginning, so that you can see what I'm seeing, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to concentrate. I'm just so visually, the visual splendor on the other side of the screen is just is blowing my mind.
The flames are so distracting.
It's good. It's really good. It's a good filter.
Good. So some good flames. So toasty.
So let's start off with the very first question, which is actually very appropriate for you. Well, April, who the hell are you anyways?
My name is April Terra Livingston, and I am a creative soul, so of course I'm being punished for it. Punished in the nicest way. I have been creating little houses for ideas for, probably 40 odd years now. A little while on my trip on the ball of dirt. I uh I create all kinds of different houses for ideas, aka artwork. And I like to work in sculpture and photography and drawing and painting and performance art. I don't believe in limiting myself to one medium. So I've been doing lots of smearing of my brain juices in many different places around the world. I was popped into this planet in the tiny little coastal city of Mobile, Alabama. And I went to school around in there, and then I went to school in some other places. And then I talked to some people and did some things and made some stuff, and now I'm here.
Fantastic. And I can't wait to get to where here to talk about, well, mostly to talk about iron, but I do want to build you up as kind of the character that you are, do you justice for the audience. So like any good hero or villain, let's go back into your past, your childhood, maybe anything. Does anything, any specific event or memory stick out in your head that you could see maybe had a impact or an influence on who you have become today?
Well, when I was a young little April, I had some very eccentric neighbors. One of them being this old fella who had a lot of strange qualities about him. He lived in his young life as a roller skating rodeo clown, and he used to do shows where he would jump over barrels. He was also born on a leap year,
Mm.
and we celebrated his 16th birthday when I was young. You can do the math.
Yeah.
We were all excited that he could finally drive. Every 4 years he has a really great party and throwdown. He was also a welder, and he did oxyacetylene and arc welding, and I was fascinated by this process. He had been doing it for so long that he'd burned off all his fingerprints. Yeah, he didn't have any fingerprints, and he did it in the old school way without the auto darkening shade. So, with the glasses and everything. He let me play a little bit when I was a kid, but I was really fascinated with the fire and the lightning and stuff. And and he also has the rarest blood type in the world. So whenever he donates blood, they pay him a lot of money.
Huh.
I can't say it's super tasty, but it's rare. Yeah, so I was really excited to have this experience when I was a kid, and thankfully I had a lot of family who also liked to make things and create things, and they were always thinking and expressing themselves through music and weird little creative objects. I remember being told not to eat the mud pies, even
Hmm.
though I had made them look very tasty. Mm. I got them back later. I made some of my own as an adult. They were right, not super tasty, but very, texturally satisfying.
Well, so did you do any art like in school or in high school or anything?
I was always a weirdo. I really had no chance. I was born into a weirdo family at a weirdo time. I was ripe with weirdos at the time of my birth. So yes, I naturally gravitated towards all of the weirdo kids who just so happened to be art kids. My grandsire owned an art store in Huntsville, Alabama, and that made getting materials very economical.
I can imagine.
Yes, it was nice. Thanks, Papa.
Credit where credit's due. So then did you decide that you wanted to go to college for art from those like experiences that you had?
Oh, so you're asking me, how did I become this artist thing that people keep talking about? Well, I always liked school and I liked learning, but I didn't know what to call myself. So I started out with some cultural anthropology that sounded fancy, and then I moved on to some biology. And then I was like, well, let's see if we could find an easier class. Biology's hard. How about that art history? I know a lot about that already. But it turns out you have to write a lot of papers.
Yeah. Bummer.
April Terra doesn't really like writing papers. But you know what? Those art kids, they don't write papers at all. So I changed my major and became an artist.
And then you sold your soul to being in the studio 24/7 instead of writing papers.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. I've been there. Yeah.
It was not a spiritual calling. It was all about avoiding papers.
So was this in high school or in college? Are we talking about? We're talking about.
I did a few degrees here and there. They kept handing me pieces of paper and I kept setting them on fire, and I kept going to get more pieces of paper and setting them on fire, and the next thing I know, it's like all these pieces of paper and people want me to give them more money for the pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Yes, I went to a lot of places that gave me pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a whole lot of things from a whole lot of people, and it was very enjoyable.
So then, because I don't actually know where. Okay, so I've learned now that you grew up in Mobile, Alabama, but other than that, I don't.
You want to know the mysteries that are April Terra?
I do.
Well, as of right now, after living a very amazing life, going all over the nice ball of dirt and looking at it from all different angles, I've met a bunch of different people and I've learned a bunch of different things. I know what I like and I know what I don't. And that's probably one of the most important things I've learned. But I make all kinds of different objects and art. One of the hardest things to do when you have such a prodigious imagination is wrangle those ideas into something cohesive.
Oh yeah.
So I just make a bunch of different things. I like to make things out of metal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But I also like to make things out of paper and plastic and plaster and aluminum and flickering lights. I like to write really emo poetry about tears and pain. And then I like to set those on fire and laugh and run around them in circles.
I mean, I think all of that makes you a more dynamic artist and person
Thank
to
you.
have all those multifaceted, flaming angles of yourself.
That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to have a fine time in the flames.
You're nailing it.
Uh,
So, where did you first come in contact with what we all know and love as iron casting?
oh, the dark matter. Well, I was sitting in tiny town of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I was playing with some paper and some plaster. I was making all these weird looking critters. And some guy shows up and says, "We're doing bronze casting." I'm like, whatever. Plaster and paper is where it's at, dude. So I went over there to mock those people who were making things out of bronze. Like, man, look at you. And finally, I saw the flames and they called to me. They said, "Come, you should make some of these things too." And I was kind of attracted and kind of repelled. I didn't know what to do with myself, you know?
Yeah.
What is this? Oh, so I made a couple of bronze castings and I was like, well, I guess that's okay. I kind of like it, but what's that thing they're doing over there with that weird little spidery creature that has flames coming out of its belly?
Yeah.
I need to go play with that. So I eventually managed to put on some of those clothes that everybody was wearing,
Uh-huh.
sneak my way into
Wait,
the crew.
by clothes, do you mean like skins of dead cows?
Yes, you
Okay.
know the sacrificial cows, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I put on their skins and I played with the fire out of the spider belly, and it was exactly what I liked. It was so tasty and delicious. I like to pour it into sand and into plaster and into the earth. I like to see it smoke and catch things on fire. It was delightful. And I was hooked. And that was it. The tiny town of Tuscaloosa. I was very lucky that my first introduction to the dark matter was through someone who actually worked at Sloss. And
Wow.
thankfully, he's here with me today.
Yeah. Oh,
What do you think of that, friend? Remember those good times at Sloss? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I sure do. I remember those times.
so who is that a skeleton of that you
I
got?
don't remember his name. He was
Okay.
just some guy who never talked at all.
Yeah.
But he basically took me to Sloss and we, looked at some things and I got to be on some iron pillars.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. I just wanted to keep doing it. Finally, I got done with my piece of paper from Tuscaloosa. I
Uh-huh.
set it on fire.
Good.
And I went to Indiana because everybody knows that's where you go if you really want to set some stuff on fire, right? I was accepted as an intern in 2014 at the famous sacrificial sculpture trail.
Folks, that is where you want to go.
That's
If
where
you
you
want
want to go.
It really is. She's not lying.
I'm not lying. You want to set some stuff on fire? That's right.
Yeah.
So, in the summer of 2014, I made the trek to Indiana, where I met other like minded souls who soon became like my family aflame. And my cult indoctrination was made.
Yeah.
I tore up a lot of forest and I burned a lot of dragons and I painted a lot of sculptures and got high off the fumes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It was delightful and I loved it. So I went back and I went back and I went back. For 5 years, I went back and poured and poured and poured some more.
So what were you doing on the off season of trails?
Wow. I've never been asked that question before.
Oh, well, I mean, if it's not important, we don't have to talk about it, but we can just talk about trails.
I was spreading my brain goo
Yeah.
from one place to another.
Yeah.
I was involved with some makings of objects and talking to people
Yeah.
about injustices. Ah, I really like to find injustices and make sculptures about them. So I was finding lots of injustices and making sculptures and more injustices after that and more. There's plenty. I
Oh, yeah.
promise. Anybody
Yeah.
else wants to do this? I got plenty for you. Lots of them. So that's what I was doing in the off season. I was also trying to force knowledge into the minds of unwilling students. Ha ha ha! Take that, you kids.
Did you make them write papers?
No, I'm not that evil. My goodness. No, I'm only slightly evil compared to. Oh my goodness. Oh,
So it could
would
be
never.
worse.
Oh, yeah. I couldn't endeavor.
Well, that's good. At least it's good to know that someone like you, at least you have limits. You have
Yeah, there's a limit to my evil. No, no research papers. I did end up marrying somebody who does that, though. I'm amazed by his amount of evil. He makes all his kids write so many papers. I'm in awe of his evil.
Well, what subject is it?
English.
Oh God. Well, there's no way around it.
No way around it.
Yeah. He probably likes it. He probably likes
He
making.
loves his evil,
Yeah.
just like I love mine.
Yeah. It sounds like a good match. Definitely.
Definitely. His weird matches my weird very nicely.
Good. Good. That's all you could ever hope for. That really is. That's when you know. So why did you keep going back? Were you going back as an artist or an intern?
I was an intern for 1 year,
Oof.
and I think that took about a third of my lifespan.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So if I wanted to live longer to be able to do more evil, I had to become a visiting artist instead.
Yep.
So I was a visiting artist for many years, made many different pieces and installed them on the grounds or took them to different places. At the same time, I was making sculptures out of other materials too and installing those in places or putting them inside places for temporary amounts of time.
Mm-hmm. So why do you continue iron casting and using cast iron in your work when you choose to do so?
I like cast iron because it's in our blood.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. Yeah. It's also in the stardust that makes up the carbon of our bodies. And I like to work with bodies. I keep going back because the dragon talks to me. When it comes out of the giant spider, out of its belly into the bowl, it talks to me and says, "Wom, wom, 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 wom." You know what I'm talking
I
about.
do. Yes, ma'am, I do.
And it always has a certain message for me. So I have to go back and continue listening. What are you trying to say?
Do you have any ideas of what it's trying to say?
I can't tell you what it says to me. What does it say to you?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not going to tell you that.
Deeply personal.
I'm the interviewer. I'm asking the question.
Deeply personal. It says something different to us all.
It does.
I like to see all those people parading around in dead animal skins, setting things on fire, breathing toxic vapors, and accidentally burning themselves and blowing things up. It's delightful.
It is. Keeps us coming back, always wanting more. So are you in the process of making any artwork that's using cast iron now or like in the past couple of years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Over the summer, I made a giant birthday cake.
Yeah.
Yeah, a giant cast iron birthday cake. And I'm going to install it in the woods. So when people are walking through there on their birthday and they don't have any cake, they can put some candles on it and sing themselves happy birthday.
Yeah.
Mhm. I've been making lots of food recently.
Mm-hmm.
I like orange food. I like to make cast iron macaroni and cheese. But I will tell you that it's difficult to digest.
I can I can imagine. Well, I actually was wondering like when you say a big birthday cake, how big? How tall? About.
It's about as tall as from my shoulders to my head.
Okay.
I guess it sort of looks like a really floppy wedding cake,
Mhm.
but it only weighs about 70 pounds.
Is it hollow on the inside? A
It
little bit?
is.
Yeah. Did you
What's
make
the point of using all that metal
I
if you
know.
don't have to?
I know. But sometimes the core is a
The
pain in the
core is
potato.
always a pain, but I love the pain. Let me French clean everything.
When you made the molds, was it in sand or it was in, did you cast it at trails this past summer?
I did.
Okay.
I casted it at trails along with some other cakes
Mm-hmm.
and desserts
Mm-hmm.
and scissors.
Are they working scissors?
No,
Oh,
in
are they
truth, they're only one scissor.
one side? So is it both sides
Yes.
and they're frozen or is it just one side?
No, it's just one.
Oh, okay. What do you love most about iron casting? Or second most or whatever?
Third most.
Third
I like
most.
the smells.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, wouldn't it be lovely to make a perfume? Eau de foundry with a little
I
bit of sand and
mhm.
a little bit of smoke, maybe some burning flesh mixed in,
Yep.
a little spritz.
Little bit of linicure. I was
Ooh,
right. I was
machinist oil as a top note.
I was making some sand molds in my garage earlier today, and there's something about right when the chemicals start mixing in the sand mixer and it just like smells like foundry. So, have you ever made a furnace or had a part in making a furnace, building a furnace?
I built a furnace with a group of people at Sloss several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened to that poor little creature.
Mm-hmm.
But she did pour a little hot metal before she was junked. It was a sweet learning experience, but some experiments are not meant to last.
Mm. What was any specifics of it? Like was it your design or did you
It was in a workshop at
Okay.
Sloss, so the design already existed.
Okay.
Currently, I own the beautiful and gorgeous furnaces of our dear Miranda. One furnace called Dark Heart sits in my backyard waiting for her moment.
It should be today. We should do it. Let's go fire it up.
Soon, my love, soon. Here's one of my little
Oh.
cakes. Oh,
Oh, so it's a cast
yes.
slice of cake
Very tasty.
and it's
Difficult
cast,
to eat.
yeah, but you've got a fork there.
I do.
Is the fork
Oh,
attached?
lovely.
So it's
It
the
is.
the fork is attached to the plate and the cake is attached to the plate. So it's all one piece cast solid. Oh, no, it's
It's
not
a little
solid.
hollow.
There's a little hollow underneath where the cake is. So these are individual slices. So was
Yeah,
this the cake that you cast at Trails? Did it have slices out of it and this is one? Or
perhaps.
maybe? I don't know.
I think this is a different cake.
Okay.
That one doesn't have any slices.
So you make whole cakes and individual cakes or
Yeah,
individual cakes for crying out loud. You make whole cakes and slices of cakes on
slices
plates.
of cakes. I like the idea of eating iron, and it
Yeah.
also makes a gorgeous patina. Look at that.
Yeah.
Is
The
it a
f-
carrot cake? Is it a Black Forest cake?
How did you make the in the pattern, how did you make the frosting?
It's one of April Terra's little secrets.
Oh,
Yeah.
trade secrets. Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's got oh, so I should say for the listeners, it's got some really nice piping and little like frosting flowers or what are those little elements called?
Yeah, that's a form of piping
A piping. Okay.
for sure.
And there's frosting in the middle. So it would have been like a 2-layer cake.
So tasty.
Was that in sand or in
It
ceramic?
wasn't sand.
Was in sand. How many parts was it?
Two.
2. Wow. Okay. Did the pattern survive or did you just do one mold for one pattern?
The pattern, unfortunately, didn't make
That's okay. That's what I'm making. So I told you I'm ramming some sand in my garage a little bit today, and I will be for the rest of the week. And I'm making cast iron jack-o'-lanterns.
Ooh, I love a good jack-o'-lantern. Very spooky.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. So they're
It's
all,
nice to cast a squash.
yeah. So I just got the foam ones from the craft store that, because I felt like I wanted to try it with the foam pumpkin first, just because of having that level of control. I don't know. I do think that I want to do a real pumpkin now that I've rammed.
You should absolutely do a real one.
I
You
know.
can do pumpkins and radishes
Hmm.
and sweet potatoes
Yeah.
and carrots and okra.
Cast iron okra would be really cool. They would be like good earrings. Look really heavy though.
Yes, very heavy. Might rip your earlobes off.
Oh, yeah, right through them. What is the most important thing that you feel like you've learned since you've been iron casting?
Watch your back.
Mm.
Sometimes things blow up, and if you don't have skin on your back, you won't have skin on your back.
Yeah, that is true. It's more true than I want to admit, actually. Yeah.
It's true. You might think you're staying cool wearing those open back
Yeah.
leather skins. You're not. You're staying burned.
Mhm.
That happened to me once.
Yikes.
Yow.
April, are you still there?
Oh, hey. Hey, what's going on? I've been trying to get on here for like, I don't know, almost an hour. I just it was weird. The screen was doing some like fuzzy stuff.
I was just talking to you for like 30 minutes.
Way. No, I've been here trying to get on the computer. Like I've been seriously like stuck in like Zoom Hades.
Really?
Yeah.
That wasn't you? I mean, we talked about, I mean, you looked
I don't know
fabulous.
I don't know who you're talking about.
I mean, because we talked about your
I mean,
form.
it's just me. I'm just here, so, oh well. And Queen Elizabeth there. I don't know if you can see her. It's me and her.
Rest in peace. Okay. I mean, because we kind of covered whoever I was talking to was
What did
fabulous.
this person say about me? I hope it was good.
They talked about how you were introduced to iron casting and how, some childhood memories and that you ended up going to sculpture trails as an intern.
Well, I did go to sculpture trails. Yeah, I went in 2014, and it
Yeah.
was awesome.
Okay. Well, so I mean, the stories are lining up, but
Huh.
okay, this is very
Well, that's really
strange.
curious. Yeah, I hope it was a good interview with this person who's not me.
I mean, it was very entertaining.
Oh, well, good. Sure, I'd like to put some of the story straight though, considering it
Okay.
wasn't me that you were talking to.
Okay. All right. Well, where do you want to circle back to anything or do you want to just pick up? We were kind of
Sure.
okay.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what this person talked to you about, but hi, I'm April Livingston. I'm from Alabama originally, but I have traveled all over. I always call Mobile, Alabama, my boomerang town. I've moved away and moved back so many times I can't even count. But it's nice to have a home base. And I've met some of the coolest people that I've ever met my whole life from there. And I have a lot to do with my hometown and a lot to do with, I guess the stuff that's going on locally, historically. I really like to do artwork that involves my community.
Mhm.
Community is super, super important to me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the iron community so much. It's really a gorgeous second family. I didn't even know that I wanted until I found them, and I'm so glad that I did.
Well, so I had been kind of pestering the other person I was talking to about their furnaces or their mold specifics or their artwork that they were making. So if that wasn't you, do you want to talk about any bodies of work that you find really impactful to other people or you're
Sure.
really
I do a lot of work on, I guess, historical justice. I like to use artwork as a teaching tool. I also like the recognition of people who maybe were not recognized by current historical standards. So I do a lot of artwork like that. I also really love nature. That's I don't know. I feel like I have like several different veins that go off. Things that strike my fancy at the time. I do get a little bit ADHD about all of that. Definitely a spectrum kid here. I do a lot of stuff about nature. I do a lot of stuff about history, and I also do some poetry in iron.
Mhm.
Right now, I'm working on, I guess, a series that I've been working on for several years now, where I do phrases of poetry, phrases, sayings, and put them into iron.
Mhm.
I like the idea of the iron cementing the words.
Mhm.
I guess it wouldn't be cementing. I mean,
Well,
it's ironing the words. The
yeah.
iron is ironing the words, making them just, permanent in a way. But, iron's not truly as permanent as we all like to think it is.
Yeah.
It's just as malleable and changeable as anything else, as human beings. So I do like that. And right now I'm trying to decide if I'm just in love with the texture of the words or like
Mhm.
the when they come out of the molds, or if it's actually the words themselves. I don't know. It's a fun piece of research.
Yeah. And it
Um,
can definitely be both, right? You know.
sure, why not? It can be so many things. I like to say that I often will make houses for ideas.
Hey, that
I
sounds
don't
familiar. That
really.
sounded familiar from the earlier part of the interview.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. I'm
wow, I have no idea who this person is or
okay.
what they said to you. I'm sorry. That's like something I've said in talks for years. Huh. Okay, well, they did their research on me, I guess.
Or have some parallel themes
Hmm,
going on. Okay.
very strange.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like to think of sculpture as building houses for ideas, not building these often I think artists and art get so spun together. We have this constant conversation about separating the artist from the art. Like, what if the artist was a real jerk? And we don't like. I'm
Mm.
like, don't get me started on Bernini. I mean, I realize that Bernini's work is absolutely genius, but I don't have to like Bernini, and I don't think I ever will like Bernini. By the way, read up on Bernini if you're listing that person as your favorite. Not a good guy, not a good guy. But his work, it's pretty fantastic. The houses of ideas that he has built are, I can't say the subject matter is my favorite,
Mm-hmm.
but the technique is gorgeous, and that's an idea. It also talks about, the world that he was living in whenever he was creating these amazing sculptures.
Yeah.
And I think that I want to think about sculpture that way. I build a house for an idea. It's not about me so much, like expressing my soul and my deepest pains and things like that, like people
Mm-hmm.
like to think artists do. Tra la la, running through the flowers, finding myself or something. It's like, no, I'm basically like, I'm capturing an idea inside of an object, and then I'm offering that object to become something else. The separation, it's immediately there because ideas are so ephemeral anyway.
Yeah.
um, I don't know if you know anything about meme theory, but it's I'm about to give you the meme of meme theory.
Tell
So here
me.
we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spreading the virus. So this is something that started quite a while back, a few couple of decades. And it's not memes like you think of today, which are just like funny cat pictures, right?
Yeah.
A meme is an idea, and it's the idea that ideas spread like viruses. And I love
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
That the successful idea, of course, is like a successful virus, and it'll spread from one mind to the other. I'm
Yeah.
giving you the meme about meme theory right now. I've
Yeah.
spread my little virus, and maybe to the other people who are listening or watching.
Oh, yeah.
Um, yeah, so I put a meme inside of my sculpture. I might put a couple of different memes inside of my sculpture, and
Mhm.
then I hand them out and hope that everybody gets infected.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Either with your meme idea or maybe
Yeah.
they might bring their own.
Yeah, it might mutate.
Hmm. Oh,
The
that's a good way to put
idea,
it.
yeah, the idea,
Hmm.
that's the way viruses work. It may mutate. I don't have any control over that,
Yeah.
but it would have come from the kernel of my idea.
Yes.
So I have to be very aware as an artist to of what it is that I'm putting in my idea houses
Hmm.
and how to give those to people.
When you are making your houses for the ideas, how do you choose your materials, whether it's cast iron or any other material that you use?
Well, here's a really weird one for you. I have something called synesthesia. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's basically where your senses get kind of mixed up.
Oh,
I think the
okay.
most famous one is, people who can see music. I can't see music, but people who see like colors and stuff for music,
Okay.
or that you can hear. I don't know, paintings or something.
Okay. It kind of reminds me of like the original Fantasia.
Oh, it's very much
There's
like that.
like if
You're
you
exact. You're spot on. Yep,
even if you don't
just like
have
that.
it, that would maybe be some way to connect with what those types of people are deal like
Oh
that can
yeah,
see
exactly. And there are so many
color.
artists who had synesthesia that
Okay.
didn't know that they did.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if you're familiar with the French poet Arthur Rimbaud, and it's not like Rambo boom boom boom. It's like Rimbaud, but he actually writes a poem about how his letters have colors.
Oh.
Uh, and it shows up in a lot of his other poetry. He didn't know what it was. He just
Hmm.
like knew that whatever letter was this color.
Okay.
Which it's a great rabbit hole to go. Your wiki hole for the evening.
Uh-huh.
Synesthesia. More artists have it than you would ever believe. And for me, I often get materials have a certain sound to me, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the best I can explain it, it's like a compulsion. It's like I know, like, if I put this material with that material, then it sounds right together. But if I put
Okay.
this material with this material, it does not sound right together.
Hmm.
Like an example, I wouldn't put aluminum with oak. Like,
Yeah.
they don't sound right together to me.
Mm-hmm.
Iron and oak go well together. Aluminum, no. Aluminum, soulless moon metal.
Yeah.
But it goes really well with plastic. So aluminum and plastic feel all right to me together. So a lot of times I kind of choose things based on what I feel comfortable with
Yeah.
as far as the sounds of different materials.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know when I'm composing a symphony of visual symphony, like, well, I like that. I've always liked the sound of iron, so it's one of the reasons why I keep returning to it. It has such a deep and resonant noise to me. Like it
Yeah.
really fulfills a lot of other um a need for other materials in a way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's usually how I'll choose the materials. Also, it will, of course, depend on external factors like, is it going to be outside? Is it going to
Yeah.
be inside?
Mm-hmm.
Can kids climb on it?
Yeah. Logistical factors. Yeah.
Yeah, like, is it poisonous?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Does it bite? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
That's really interesting because what did you say? You said composing a visual symphony.
Symphony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Think about
really,
all the notes that you pick to
yeah.
go. And sometimes you want a huge cacophony and you want it to be a really loud and like, jugga 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 kind of deal.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need it to be sweet and subtle.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's pie in the face. I don't know. Yeah,
Depends.
it really depends. What idea are you going to build and
Mhm.
put out there? I get so excited by all the ideas that I have. I get very frustrated actually that I don't have enough time. I get sleepy and I don't have enough time to develop these ideas. I write them down and then I try to pawn them off on younger artists, be like, do this.
Hey, here's a
Um,
hint. No, I have
um,
that same, my husband and I talk about that too. It's like we have all these ideas and we've been better about writing down the ideas, brainstorming in journals and things like that. But I have recently had to come to terms with the fact that I'm going to have more ideas in my lifetime than I have time in my lifetime to make, which is
That's
kind
true.
of depressing. It could be depressing, but I've tried to frame it in a different light because there are people, and I know that you've experienced these people that they don't have ideas. Most of the time, they're
Mhm.
not artists, but they might be aspiring artists or they might be crafts people like woodworkers or quilters or I find I'm exposed to most people like this that have some sort of more like a craft based, so like wood turning or
Well, let's not talk
quilting.
bad about craft now, man. You don't want to make those
Listen,
crafters
no,
angry.
no, no, I know. Well, I have my
Those
master's
are not
degree
the
in
people you want to make angry.
no, no. Well, but like I have my master's degree in craft, so it's like I get it. I
Awesome.
get it.
Man,
I get
don't you
it.
be talking bad about craft then.
No, no, no. But they will ask me, or I'll hear them on podcasts ask, where do you get your ideas from?
Hmm.
Because they maybe have a full shop, garage, or whatever basement set up with uh, all the woodworking tools that one could possibly, they've made all of their shop furniture. They have the long arm quilting arm for the quilters, but they don't know where to get ideas. And when I experience their frustration, I feel better about my lack of time to do my ideas because I'd rather have more ideas than time than have all the time in the world and not be able to come up with any ideas.
Heard that. I would say two things to that. One being, well, write them down. Write down them, put them in that sketchbook. I mean, come on, Da Vinci came up with all kinds of crazy things and people now are building them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put it in your sketchbook. Always put it in your sketchbook, no matter what. I have probably about 5 different lists of, ideas. Um, I will also say that as an artist, we are very, very lucky because we are basically put into this pond and trained to have ideas.
Yeah.
We are trained to do this. This is one of my favorite ranty subjects right now that you just hit on. Is
Ooh.
how I believe that other, like in a university setting, other departments should always come to the art department if they've run out of ideas or they don't know what
Yeah.
to do about something. Don't go to engineering first. They don't know. They know how to build stuff, and that's
Yes.
great. But like we need to come up with a fresh new way to do stuff. Well, why don't you go to the people who've been trained for years and years and years and years to look at things in a different way?
Yeah.
We've basically been riding the bicycle of the mind
Yeah.
for our entire existence, and like we can do all of the flips and spins and everything. We are the idea people, and it's not because we're like special magical beings who just popped out of our mommies like this. I
Mhm.
art worked hard to get here, but my brain is super like plastic when it comes to making ideas. I
Yeah.
can see things just growing out of everything. It's almost like we've been able to glimpse the grand fractal of the universe, and we can just kind of like ride the train. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Whereas other people, maybe they made their brains really plastic for like engineering, and they know
Yeah.
how to build like just
Ma-
so many crazy things.
yeah.
Great. Good.
Material specificities and limits and
People
weight
who
limits.
do
And yeah.
medicine, they
Yeah.
made their brains super good to be able to see the human body and what was wrong with it. It's like
Mhm.
I think it's so funny, like this new idea of the artist. I like to just blame Jackson Pollock randomly for everything. Like it's raining outside, it's Jackson Pollock's fault.
Uh-huh.
But really, like that whole idea of like the brooding, tortured artist alone in their studio, like expressing themselves or something. I am not interested in that. I'm interested in, I'm building more ideas.
Mhm.
And yeah, I agree. There is a point where you're like, there's no way I can never do all of these things. And I think definitely trying to choose which ones to do and when to do. Oh,
Mhm.
well, when you figure that one out, please let me know because that's hard. I get so distracted, so very squirrel about, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And, it'll make me sad sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't have more time and energy. And then I remember that I'm going 67,000 miles per hour around the sun right now, and I shouldn't be complaining.
Yeah. Yeah. And also another thing about that topic is knowing when to let a potential project idea go. Like when to
Mm.
say, I can't think of anything
Mm.
specific, but like I've been
So
holding on to
hard.
this because I want to make a project with it. But then 10 years later, I'll like open up that drawer and be like, oh, yeah, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. Like let it go and feel
Yeah,
okay about letting
it's
the idea
fine.
go because
Yeah.
there's plenty more. You're
Well,
just
that
making
that little
room.
virus just was not powerful enough. It got rid of itself.
Yeah.
The
And good
little,
riddance.
yeah, it was like the Darwin Award for that idea. Just went
Yeah.
away, or somebody else did it, or
Or
whatever.
Or
You
maybe
know,
it sparked something else that was stronger, more important, more
exactly.
appropriate. Maybe
I love that.
that was like the link that you needed. You might not know it though. Like there's so much that I
Isn't that wonderful when you look back at all those
yeah.
links?
Yeah, and it's like full circle certain things.
Freaky.
Let's see. Well, what else do you want to talk about? We want to talk
Mm.
about
I do love to talk about the civil rights work that I do.
yes.
So for many years after getting out of the graduate level studies that I'd done, I still felt like I was grasping. Like, of course, I did a thesis or two,
Hmm.
and came up with those big groups of ideas, but I still felt like I wasn't really moving towards anything that felt substantial. I was like still trying to figure out this whole like how to be a creative person living. um and it was on this one trip that I will still say to this day, I don't know who it was that tapped me on the head, but it was one of the most crazy serendipitous things that ever happened to me. I mean, it's like I tell the story sometimes, and I still get chills thinking about it. It's like I don't know who made me take that wrong turn that day, but holy crap! Like, I pay attention now. I pay really close attention when stuff like that happens. So I had just gotten done teaching some classes and I had to go run some errand. I don't even remember what the errand was because I didn't go do it that day. Had to go run an errand. But I was like in my brain thinking about other stuff, and my car just kind of took me home like a good horse. And I
Mm-hmm.
was on my way home, like halfway there, and I'm like, oh crap, no, I gotta go back and do that thing. But I guess it wasn't time sensitive because I said, oh, well, first I'll stop by the Africatown Welcome Center.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with Mobile and Africatown,
No.
um, so Africatown is this small community that is north of Mobile that was the first free, it was the first free Black community in southern Alabama after the Civil War.
Okay.
Um, but the story is itself one of the like most amazing stories of survival and of American history that I can think of. It's something every American should know. And I'm so kind of like I'm very proud to be from Mobile, and I'm proud to I'm proud to know this story,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm proud to take part in the blooming of this story. I am not proud of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, anyhow, I'll explain more about that. So I accidentally take this wrong turn, and I pull up into what is called the Africa Down Welcome Center. It's next to the cemetery, and I had been there a few years prior, but nobody was there when I went. And I was like, well, this will give me a chance. I have to turn around right here. It'll give me a chance to go in there and talk to the guy that was running it. And I
Yeah.
got there, and the lot was empty. There, the trailer office that had been there was gone. There were
Oh.
two busts on the hill that were made out of plaster, but they had been vandalized. The heads had been knocked off. And I was just kind of standing there looking at this, what looked like, a storm had come through. And this car pulls up, and I'm just like, okay, so somebody's pulling up here to say, hey, what are you doing here? Or, hey, do you need some help? Is your car broken down?
Yeah.
Southern town. That's just how it happens. And I'm like, okay, that's what I'm expecting. Instead, the door opens and this really white blonde guy gets out, and he's comes over to me and he's talking with this heavy accent, which I immediately recognized. And he was like, hi, do you know what happened here? And I'm like, oh, and he's like, oh, he's this artist who's doing a residency in New Orleans. And Martin Van den Ende, I'm talking about you. But he was doing a residency in New Orleans. He had just driven over from New Orleans to see the Africa Down Welcome Center. And we just happened to show up at the exact same time at the exact same place, asking the exact same question. And I used to live in the town that he's from, in Belgium.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like I live like right down the street from where like he was from. And so I'm like, I hear his accent. I'm like, you're Belgian. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to live in the town that you're from. And it was so freaking weird. And he starts telling me why he's there, and he's doing research
Mm-hmm.
about the area. He's done a lot of artwork about the slave trade between Belgium and the Congo, which was a whole other story. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, so we walked around the cemetery together, and I told him all the things that I knew. I had found out about Africa Town when I was about 27 years old. Having grown up in Mobile, Alabama, this is a travesty. And the only reason I found out about it is because, well, I'm a big fat nerd, and I like to read about history. I didn't know about the story whenever I was a kid, and the story being that the last slave ship to come to the United States ever came to Mobile, Alabama
Mm-hmm.
after it was made illegal to import slaves. These
Mm-hmm.
people were brought forcibly, and illegally into the United States, and they were enslaved for a handful of years. And then the Emancipation Proclamation, and then They were basically put off and said, fend for yourselves. They all tried to go back to Africa. They couldn't raise enough money. Their former master wouldn't pay for them to go back. So they also saved up money again and bought land from their former master, which, okay. But then started a community. And the descendants of that community are still there. Um, Whenever I am talking to Martin, who just shows up in the same place, he starts telling me about this bust that used to be in front of the church. And I'm like, oh, this bust that was in front of the church? What bust? I start doing research. He starts doing research, and we're kind of separate now, but we kind
Yeah.
of kept in touch doing this research. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, if they want a cast of their bust to be, I found out it had been stolen. The
Okay.
original one had been
Hmm.
stolen. And I was like, well, if they want a cast of this bust or whatever, then, I can do that. No problem. So I
Hmm.
had to track down who to talk to. I ended up getting in touch with the pastor from the church and the deacon from the church. And we made a great partnership to get this thing cast and replaced. I couldn't use the original pattern because it's it's in a historical museum, and they were worried about the original pattern. So
Yeah.
I actually modeled a new bust and cast it. And within a year and a half, we had replaced the bust, which was amazing. And it's
Wow.
still like, I'm just like, I can't believe it. Like, I got to be part of, even on the tiniest, smallest way, I got to be part of that story. And, like the day that we unveiled it and all of those descendants came out, and, like they were excited to see the bust and like how important it was to them to have like this story recognized and the story heard by people. I was hooked. I was like, man, if art can do this, like I can't think of like doing other things. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
use art as a tool to educate and heal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's what I want to do. Of course, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do as much as I can now. Oh, and also read Barracoon by Zora Neale Hurston. It's the story of Africa Town, and I would highly recommend that you listen to it as an audiobook because it's read in dialect, and it gives you basically a from the mouth of the man who I sculpted, Zora Neale Hurston, actually like met him and took his story down, and it was published 2 years after the bust was unveiled. And then they ended up finding the actual slave ship that had been sunk. And now, like National Geographic, I know it was like this crazy like thing
Whirlwind.
that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, but and the movie Descendant just came out on Netflix, which please watch that. It turns out that Questlove was one of the descendants of Africa Town, and
Hmm.
they made this really awesome movie that tells everybody about what it is. So go watch that on Netflix and learn
Yeah.
about it because it's part of your American history and you should know.
Yeah. Well, so that sounds like a really interesting project that you were just working on and still passionate about. But what else do you have hot on the horizon that you're working on now?
I have, I love the history of my area. I love the history of Alabama, of the Southeast. I'm always looking for stories to tell. And
Hmm.
one that I love is that there's this cool woman who comes from Mobile who was born enslaved. And then in her short life of 27 years, uh, went from being enslaved to one of the first Black women CEOs of the United States ever, like ever. And nobody in Mobile knows who this woman is. It's crazy. Like, why? Why don't we know who she is? Why, of course not. I'm not going to say nobody knows, but like it's a very limited group of people who know
Hmm.
who she is. Um, and her house is a historic, like it's on the National Historic Register.
Hmm.
So she ran with her brother because a woman couldn't own a business by herself. She ran with her brother it's sort of like a delivery service, but it was also sort of a livery service, like where you could rent horses, kind of like a first UPS
Okay.
or something like that. But she became so successful that she owned a ton of property in like a predominantly white owned area, and then built her own mansion, which still stands and amazingly is still owned by her family. You never hear that story. And it's this beautiful Italianate yellow mansion on St. Charles Avenue. I'm sorry, on St. Francis, 504 St. Francis. I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
In Mobile. Um, her name is Betty Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she died when she was about 27. We think of maybe anemia, not totally sure. I live next to one of the big cemeteries in Mobile, and she's buried in that cemetery. We go and visit her all the time.
Yeah.
But the Hunter House, it has the potential to become like a super cool kind of, I guess, touchstone in the
Mm-hmm.
downtown area, maybe for this kind of history. I've been working with one of her descendants I'm working on a sculpture, a little maquette sculpture of her, and then also maybe a small documentary. I've been working on that for a little while, like 25 minutes or so. And then I would like to be able to raise the money or find sponsorship to, put a new roof on the house and renovate it so that it could be used as a residency slash gallery space, workspace, event space, for her descendants, who want to honor her memory. I think that, all the young people in Mobile should know about this story about this woman who really like had an amazing life and was able to become so successful
Yeah.
in under such, crazy complicated situations.
Yeah. She definitely sounds like
Yeah,
she
so
was
I want people to know about her.
defying a lot of
Yeah, kind of nuts.
social norms at the
I'd love to
time.
find,
Yeah.
if you're out there, I'm talking to you, that Black woman CEO out there would love to be the sponsor of this project, because wouldn't that be wonderful? But yeah, we've been looking for funding sources, and I'm hoping that the small documentary will actually help build that into, get some good PR for Betty Hunter.
I think it will. I mean, it's amazing what video can really evoke in a viewer more than I feel like any other media, because it really is so immersive and you really can get the feel. Like, are you doing interviews of family
Yeah,
members?
I've
Yeah.
done an interview of it's her great times five niece.
Yeah.
She didn't have any kids. They're
Yeah.
all from the brother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, she's a special lady, and she gave me a tour
Mm-hmm.
of the house, and we have an interview of her like going through the house and at the graveyard. I've also I'll have a local historian talking about her, and then talking about the project itself and like
Mm-hmm.
why we're building this maquette. Hopefully the maquette, once it's cast, can be turned into or sponsored to be a larger sculpture,
Yeah.
or inspire somebody else to build a larger sculpture of her. I don't really care,
Yeah.
as the story gets told and the house gets saved.
Yeah.
And I would love that to all happen in the lifetime of this one ancestor, because she's worked really hard to
Mhm.
get that sorted.
It sounds like your heart is in the right place with that project. And usually those types of projects do end up turning into bigger things because
I'm real stubborn about trying to see some of this stuff through.
good.
It's like
Good.
I have to see this through, so it's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Mhm.
Well, just like I wish it would happen faster, but stupid time.
Yeah, like many things in life. I know we were just talking about time. Time's so
Stupid,
slow and
stupid time.
there's not enough of it. It goes too
Boo! I
fast.
hate it that my body gets tired. Why can't
I
I
know.
just like not do that? Uh, so it goes.
Well, do you have anything else that you want to talk about for Hot on the Horizon, or would it be a good time to switch over to advice?
Sure, let's switch to advice.
All right, April, what advice do you have for us?
Hmm. I have a couple of epitaphs. I think if they're going to be advice, I'd be fine. If you're going to make a mistake, make it everywhere, and nobody will know it's a mistake. It's a good one.
Yeah.
Uh, if it makes your heart feel shiny, you should do it. If it makes your stomach feel gross, you should not do it. Avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good litmus test.
Yeah.
When I think of this, does it make my heart feel shiny? Makes my stomach feel kind of gross. Well, then don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't do it. It's fun. Yeah, that's my advice.
That is very good advice. And I think that so I always say, follow your heart. And that I feel like it is if your heart feels shiny. And so they're kind
Yeah.
of very similar, but and it's like
Yeah.
from everything as small as do I want to wear wool socks today or cotton socks to as big as I don't even know what something big would be, but these big life decisions about
Yeah.
socks.
You should listen to your ancestors speaking to you through your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's all that genetic memory that you've built up. Listen to them. They're usually right.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're always right, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we should go off to the after show. Do you want to pick out a question or a topic or a story? Or I have a question for you actually
Oh.
about on your Instagram. So I'm just going to tease it right now because then we're
Mm-hmm.
going to go over to the after show and talk about it. But in your Instagram, you identify as an art worker. Is that something that you've always had on your Instagram and I just didn't notice it, or did you just change it recently?
Oh no, I think it's on there. I also have that I'm a manifestrix.
You do, but so recently I want to say I just heard the term art worker for the first time that it stuck.
Hmm.
My perception is changed now about myself after hearing this term. And
Mm-hmm.
then I just happened to be stalking you on Instagram right before. I mean, I follow you on Instagram, but I don't know if I'd ever gone
Sure.
to your page and I saw art worker and
Well, I will say an art worker is not just used by me. It is often used for people who work in the arts that would not consider themselves artists, even though I think that's just
yeah.
crazy.
Well, let's
I think
talk about it. We'll talk about it in the after show because
okay,
I have lots of thoughts about that. And usually in the after show, I let loose a little bit and I'll talk back and forth more instead of just asking questions and listening. So we'll talk about art worker. Well, do you have anything else also that you want to talk about, or we can also decide that in the after show?
now I'll say if there's anybody listening or watching who wants to share ideas sometimes, yeah, let me know. I love a good meme.
And I'll have your Instagram and website in the outro, which I record afterwards, but they can just message you on Instagram, right?
Sure, sounds grand.
Okay. Well, for the public audience, let's say good night and thanks for listening. So, April, thank you so much for being on the show today. Talking with
My
you
pleasure.
in all of your forms was a delight.
Hmm. Yeah, I got to figure out who this person is. I'm not sure. It's freaking me out a little.
Well, I guess you'll see when the episode goes live. You'll see what
Yes, I will.
happened. I mean, there is something about, I've been seeing that today and tomorrow, because it's Halloween, there's a veiling of
Yeah,
the,
the veil between the worlds is thinner.
yeah.
That's true.
So everybody be on the lookout. We've got another
Right.
24 hours of this.
Freaky.
Yeah. All right. So everybody who is listening and watching to the public show, thanks so much for tuning in today. And we'll see you in the next episode. If we don't see you at the after show, but come on over to the after show. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm sure it's clear to you that April has a passion for making life interesting for herself and all those around her. And as far as I'm concerned, it is refreshing, and witnessing her style of living has helped me re-engage with my own outlook on life and art in a new and exciting way. I am currently fascinated with the meme theory that she taught me about, and I have an urge to explore the idea of historic stories that are ready to be resurfaced and newly discovered by our contemporary society. April, It's more apparent to me now than ever that you are a dynamically multifaceted being on this little old ball of dirt. I really enjoyed getting a chance to see a couple of your many sides. I send your way my good vibrations and wish you all the success with your many passion projects. I hope they all come together with a success that exceeds your wildest expectations. Your heart is undeniably in the right place, and your focus on these aspects will for sure benefit them as well as us all. If you're interested in seeing April's portfolio, you can visit her website, which is Terra Livingston.com, and that's Terra, but if you just type it in Google, you'll find your way there. But also, if you're interested in witnessing her journey more directly, you can follow her at Terra Fredo on Instagram, and that's TerraFredo. And for one last word of thanks to our top supporter, Sloss Metal Arts, for supporting this show and helping me to capture these snapshots of our community members as they recount their iron art origin stories. And of course, I am truly looking forward to seeing everyone at the national conference this year, and it's this upcoming April 5th through the 9th in 2023. So yes, thank you, Sloss Metal Arts, for supporting the podcast, as well as thank you to our other supporters on Patreon. The funds that you support me with are invaluable and help me continue to produce these episodes. So if you listening would like access to the after shows for as little as $1 a month, go to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/podcastiron. And there you can choose a contribution level that fits within your budget. But supporters at any level get access to the after show from each episode. And by now, you already know it's an extra 15 to 20 minutes with the show's guest, where we talk a little more candidly and share at least one more story. But if you don't have it in your budget to support the podcast Iron on Patreon, it's okay. Instead, please share the podcast with someone you think would be interested in listening or watching, and I'll appreciate that just as much. Anything and everything helps, and for that I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And one more thing I want to mention is, folks, it's fall iron pour season, so go out and get to a pour. There are events happening all over. Personally, I'll be attending an iron pour hosted by Black Dog Metal Arts in Peoria, Illinois, and that is going to be on Saturday, November 19th. You can get more detailed event information through their Instagram handle, which is Black Dog Metal Arts, but also they have a website link to the actual pour specificities, and I'll leave that in the description box of this video and then also in the show notes if you're listening to it as a podcast. But if you can't make it out to Peoria, Illinois, honestly, Facebook and Instagram are alight right now with announcements of upcoming pours. So like I've already said, find one in your area and go. Either this one in Peoria or one that's close to you. You will not regret it. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me at thepodcastiron@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening and watching. I'm sending you all my love always, and I can't wait to share the next episode with you. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great day.